In this episode, I sit down with James Tobias of Audic Empire as he takes us on a personal journey. Discover how his love for music blossomed from playing in smaller bands to forming the acclaimed group Audic Empire. Hear the candid story of his decision to get sober and the delicate balance he maintains between his contracting work, band commitments, and sobriety. James also opens up about his solo project and the inspiration behind his latest release, Raisin Hell. This is a must watch for any fan of Audic Empire or those seeking inspiration to pursue their passions while prioritizing their well being.
Hey, this is Hunter from the Everything's Connected podcast. I'm part of the Podcast Connection Network, which is full of awesome shows such as the one you are about to listen to. We have a world of podcasts that'll keep you hooked. Head on over to our webpage, which you will find the link for in the episode's description.
Guess I made a goddamn mess of things. Sitting at the jailhouse, I guess you got the best of me. It's a given, should've listened all the things you said to me. Don't be fucking around with the methamphetamines. Cold as hell up in the ceiling, coming down from everything. Haven't thought about you in a year and now you're all I see. Guess that's how it goes, I'll see you once I fall asleep. And I'm feeling fine, but there's a heartbeat back down the highway. So I'll drive as fast as I can.
So, welcome to another episode of the Men of the House podcast. And on today's episode, we have James Tobias, who's the bassist of Audic Empire, but also a solo artist. So, how's it going today?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So, we're gonna start off with it. Give the audience, the listener, a little bit of your story. Those people who don't know about you, other than what I've shared with them. But where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Dallas,
Okay.
Texas.
And
Yeah,
it
I was
kind of
born.
what age? Well, kind of where you grew up, but also at what age and how did you get into music?
I've honestly been obsessed with music as long as I can remember. I still remember clearly just like lying on the floor in my bedroom as a little kid, like 3 years old, just listening to old CDs and stuff of, Doors, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Led Zeppelin. I have listened to that Led Zeppelin one. I don't even know how many times. And so I was really just in love with music ever since I was a little kid. And kind of, it was like the thing that I wanted to do
Right.
was play music. And so I had a couple guitars that were, I would just play around on. I didn't really know what I was doing. But then I started taking guitar lessons, I guess probably when I was about probably 12 years old or something. And then I was never good at practicing my scales or the things that I should be practicing. I
Right.
just wanted to learn songs and and picked around in some bands for years and just yeah, I got started pretty early. And
Where did you get
yeah.
exposed to like Jimi Hendrix and all that? Because that's kind of a like in a similar fashion, my parents were kind of hippies. And so at
Yeah.
6 years old, I got like my first jam box. I'm 47, so yeah, it was a cassette, and I got like Huey Lewis and the News and Stray Cats, which, the Stray Cats was more the rockabilly my dad kind of introduced me to. But then it wasn't like a couple years later, I got like a dual tape deck with the record player on top. That was kind of a big thing in the 80s when it came out, and detachable speakers. But with my parents kind of being that hippie-ish type people, my dad had this ginormous record collection. And so when I got that dual tape deck with the phonograph on top, um, I went into the record collection. And so I would say by the time I was like 7 or 8, I was listening to like ZZ Top, um, Foghat, all kinds of, that 70s classic rock kind of music. And that's kind of what I grew up on. But how did you get exposed to that kind of music?
It's funny because it's kind of parallel to that. Just I'm a little younger, so I got I got the boombox with a CD player on it, and my
Okay.
dad had the big binders of all the CDs. You had the
Yeah.
cover on one side and the CD on the other, and he had, I think it was like 6 books of
Oh,
those. So it was yeah, so it was just, and it was a lot of rock and roll, and that's what I really connected with. But it was also just every genre he was into, and so like whatever I wanted to get into, I could find it in there. And so I was always going through his CD books as I got older. And but those first few CDs were just like my first CDs that I owned. And and then as he got more and the books and all that stuff, then I started branching out. So all the my musical taste for all of those years was all from my dad. And so, and he's the one that paid for the guitar lessons and all that stuff. So I definitely got a big push from my dad. He was just always been a big music nut.
so when you had mentioned that you you started with some lessons, and of course anybody who's had guitar lessons, you know there's scales, there's theory, but then you can also go in there and say, hey, I want to learn to play this song.
Yeah.
What what when you were, since you said you weren't practicing your scales as much, but you were interested in playing the songs, what kind of songs were you trying to play or trying to learn at that time? Was it in the same genres kind of that you'd been listening to, or
Yeah.
did you take a different approach, like trying to play maybe like some punk rock or kind of simple chord progression type stuff?
Yeah. I say starting off, I mean, it was more, I mean, my musical taste past what my dad was listening to was, what was on the radio. Cause I mean, that's what we did back then, was just listen to the radio. And so a lot of the stuff I was learning was stuff that I learned on the radio, then got the CD afterwards, like we all used to. It's kind of crazy
Yeah.
to think about now. And so a lot of Smashing Pumpkins, really. I really like the Smashing Pumpkins. So I was learning a lot of those, their songs on guitar, a lot of Nirvana, pretty like simple kind of stuff, but songs that I could take, learn, and then jam them with, my friends at school or whatever. We would get together and have band practice, you know, and do that. But all that being said, we were never very good because I was doing the same thing I am now, except it was guitar and vocals as opposed to bass and vocals. And, I was never really that great of a singer. It took me many years to kind of be able to do that properly. But yeah, man, it was just having fun. I mean, it's kind of cool because if I saw what I was doing now back then, I would be like, holy shit, that's amazing. That's all I wanted to do was just have band practice. And now it's kind of funny because it's like, ah, shit, we got to have band practice today and get ready for the shows. So it's a different outlook, but yeah, that's kind of how it all began. Just noodling around and jamming out and middle school.
And I think too, it's interesting because, kind of that that time period, it's just so different, leaps and bounds from kind of where we are today. Because I can remember having the hundred books of CDs, a couple of them, like 6 dish changers, 100 dish changers when I worked in kitchens, shit like that, and you know, and my wife was going through some of my stuff and found like some old guitar tab books. And like, remember Guitar Magazine and all that, Guitar
Oh
World,
yeah.
they would always
Yeah.
have the tabs in them. And I'm like, now it's, man, the kids got YouTube, and with like Apple Music and everything, it's just so much more streamlined in terms of, even if you want to practice playing with other songs, um, it's not like the CD having to go back to the beginning or find the place that you're going to start at. Now
Oh yeah.
you can just drag it and start from wherever is the top.
Well, it's so cool because just on my phone, if I want to look up, because now that I'm doing, like Ronnie and I do our acoustic stuff and I've got my solo stuff, so I'm like, I need to learn some covers. And so I'm kind of going back and doing that again, which Audic doesn't really, we've got a couple of covers we do, but it's mainly all original. So I'm kind of doing covers again. And now I can just pull up like a guitar tab app on my phone, and it'll have the song will be there. It'll go through each note individually. I mean, it's all right on my phone. I can just pull up at any time. And when I was a kid, having to get on the family computer log in and print off the tab. It took a while to load. It took a while to print, and then I've got the tabs printed, and then half the time they were wrong.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
going from that to just, I pull it up onto this thing that's always on me, and it's all perfect, and they have reviews on each one, so you know which one's best. And it's like, oh, you just want the chords, then open this one, and it's just right there in front of you. It's crazy the way technology is. I mean, there's so many awesome guitarists now because it's like you have so much available to you. It's
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
had to really like. I remember I had a like my boombox with the radio and the tape deck and the CD player, and I would listen to the radio and then record a song that I've been waiting to hear, and then so
Mhm.
that I could record it onto the tape. And I would get upset when the DJ would talk over it, it's like, he messed up the intro, he messed up the ending, and like that's how we used to get music, man. It
Yeah.
was we didn't want to go out and buy it. We had to do it like that was like the old school like ripping a song, So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy, man.
I think it's awesome though. I think it's, you know, it it opens up so much, but even now, like in terms of like way back in the day, I can remember Local H was one of the first bands that we had listened to that had like the two-person kind of just a guitarist and a drummer. And now with the technology, I mean, you can have I just saw Little Stranger not too long ago, you know, two guys just ripping it up, and you can plug in your pieces, and it takes away that whole thing back in the 90s and 2000s when I was playing and stuff. It was like, well, you had to have somebody to play with. Um, it was so different, I don't think they had as many like looping pedals, but like now I have a looper that will lay down a bass line for you, lay down your drum tracks for you all off of a riff. And
Oh wow, I didn't know
it's
it
just,
did that.
yeah, it's just wild. So, I haven't played in a long time, but it's kind of it's just amazing how far it's come along. And I'm kind of curious where it'll go. But, I think the thing is, just looking at all of it, even considering all that's changed, but even the music business has changed. And, I kind of talked to Kyle Smith about that, and some other people I mention it. It's, I was a child of the 90s. My first concert was like Metallica opening for Guns N' Roses at Texas Stadium in 93. So,
Nice.
it's just that whole, it's opened up the opportunity for musicians to kind of take a different path that they used to not have. I mean, you guys are able to, you don't have to necessarily move to LA, be mainstream or be whatever's popular or
Hmm.
popping on the radio, and you guys can kind of do your own thing. But then it also, just as much as you do in your solo project, I mean, it's just really opened up how fast you can actually get something down, recorded, and then just throw it on Spotify. And,
Yeah,
you don't have to like whether it's press a record or this or that kind of stuff, it's just so different.
yeah. It's crazy. I mean, it's like anything else. It's kind of like a double-edged sword because I mean, their barrier for entry is so much smaller now. Because I mean, you can see this is where I record a lot of my stuff. It's just this is in my bedroom right here, this little desk, and I'm
Right.
able to get stuff down that sounds decent, and then and be able to, like you said, put it together and get it out, pretty quick. Which, when, 30 years ago, it's like you had to spend some real money for a big professional studio to get in there and have someone engineer it and have someone do everything. And it's, now you can really DIY stuff and put out some good shit, decent to good shit. And like, but the other thing is, with streaming and stuff, I mean, it's not like we're making any money, you
Right.
know. So you really got to get out there and you got to hustle and you got to play shows and and sell merch and all that stuff. So that's kind of the other side of it. And a lot of these bands, I think that thought they were retired, now they're having to go back out and make some money and on the road and everything. But it's just a different a different thing. But the music industry has always been like that. You know, as technology changes, it goes hand in hand with the music industry. It's just, yeah, there's always something new, something different, and a different way to do it. But I think the good thing about now is you can really be true to who you are, and put out the kind of music that you want to put out, and you're able to find that fan base that's going to dig it, you know. And that's really just the challenge, is getting it out to as many people as you can, so that you can find your people that like your music, as opposed to trying to put out a product that you think is going to be, you know, that the most people are going to like. I mean, you can still do that, but it's nice to be able to do something that you just like, and you'll be able to find your people that way, you
Well,
know.
and you have, I think now there's just way more sense of control for the artist.
100%. Yeah. You don't have, it's not about, you know, it used to be like making it was, oh, we're going to get a record deal. We're going to get signed, and these record execs are going to take it. Then they'll put all of their ideas on it and tell you what to do and all this stuff. And it's like, and then you end up owing them a bunch of money, and they'll shelf your project and all this stuff. So, you know, now we don't have to worry about that. You know, there's still labels out there, great labels and stuff, but it's not like the only way to do it. You know, we always advertise that with Audic, as, you know, we're a DIY band. You know, we do everything ourselves. We've got our manager, Jen, who's fucking awesome, that, you know, helps us do a lot of stuff. But other than that, it's just us guys, you know.
So how did you
And
guys
what
get
we
started with Audic?
So Ronnie and I actually had a band before Audit called Head Change, and that's where we got the name for our album, Head Change. And Yeah, so we were, I guess, a couple of years before Audic Empire. We had been playing for a while, and then that band dissolved, and then ended up starting another project, and got these guys together. Um, and our original drummer, uh, who's no longer in the band, but and our keyboardist and Ronnie all went to I think the same school, but they're definitely in the same city. And so over in the Houston area. So
Montgomery.
that's how they all, yeah, Montgomery, that's how they all know each other. And then, and I guess our original guitarist as well, but he's no longer in the band. So now we have Travis, who's from Lago Vista, and me. So, yeah, so they all got together, the Montgomery guys, and then brought me in. And
My wife graduated from Montgomery.
oh, okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh yeah. So I've been through there quite a few times. She's from the Woodlands, so
Nice.
we're over there quite a bit. And I always see you guys every time y'all are posting, y'all are playing at Kima and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's been fun. I like going
I've
out
never
there.
gotten to go. Although we have family in League City, and when we're down there, if y'all are ever down there, I'll check it out.
Okay,
Um,
cool. Yeah.
but yeah,
And if you know any place that wants to book us, let me know. We're always down.
I don't really go out that much. You guys ever play at the Scout Bar?
Yeah, yeah. We used to play there. We've played there quite a few times. Um, we'll probably be going through there sometime soon. We need to hit them up and try to put something together. We always love playing that venue.
Yeah, there's a lot of good
That's
bands that
a legit
actually come
spot.
through there, and kind of that was my thing was I know anytime I want to go see a show, I could stay with my brother-in-law down there, and he said that the Scout Bar is only like a 10-minute Uber ride or something. I was like, shit, I didn't know it was that close. I would have probably planned for more shows, you know. But I'm closer
Yeah.
to Dallas, so I typically head up to Dallas for any shows. It's about an hour and a half drive. I can drive up and drive back if necessary. But what was how did you guys meet? So I know I'd read the article you did for the bass magazine or the bass feature,
Hmm.
and you it mentioned in there that you pretty much grew up in Dallas, but you went to Colorado for a year, and then I guess you came back and
Hmm.
y'all started the band. What was the deal in Colorado? What did you do out there for a year?
Oh, yeah. I was pretty young. That was in like ninth grade, I want to say, something
Okay.
like that. So yeah, it was my stepdad had gotten a job out there for a year, and then we moved back. But yeah, I just did want to say I've been in Texas all my life, and then someone looks back and is like, "What about that year in Colorado?" Not that anybody would do that. It's just I like to make sure everything I say is factual.
So
But
how'd you and Ronnie
yeah,
meet? How'd y'all come up, meet,
yeah.
start the band?
So I moved to Georgetown I guess when I was 18, and I got an apartment out there, and then ended up moving to. I had this thing with my ex, and she wanted to move to Austin. And long story short, so I moved to this apartment complex called Metropolis. I'm sure there's some people watching this that know what I'm talking about, but it's like this crazy apartment complex in Austin, and it's like it's almost like if you would picture the college experience without the college. It's
Yeah.
like everybody just, I'm in building 4 and I'm in building 7, and we get like a kegger over in this building, and then it's like just everybody was partying, and a lot of artists and musicians and stuff there. And we were both living there, and I met him at a party, and I was playing some Sublime covers on my guitar, and he was like, "Oh, cool, Sublime," like it was jam. And so then we met up, and we just started jamming. That was it. We'd get together and drink some beers and play some music. And we were like, well, and we found a drummer. So we are like, let's start a band. And he didn't want to, or like, we are trying to figure out who was going to play bass. And for one reason or another, I ended up being the one to play bass. And so we both sang, and I played bass, he played guitar, and we had drums. And we're like, all right, cool, we're a band. And so, yeah, it was pretty fun, man. Those were good times.
Do you have how many live, did you get to play live and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we played like, I mean, it was the epitome of like the starter gigs. We played at our apartment complex at the pool. We played at this pizza place like every other week for pizza and beer. I mean, it was gigs like that. And so we were just having fun playing music, man. That was really like, we had aspirations of being like a real band, but it was more just, we just had fun playing music, and we'd take any gig that we could get.
I hear
But
you.
yeah, yeah.
And how was the transition to bass?
Um, I would say it was, I played it like a guitar, if that makes sense,
It
for a
does.
long time. And I played with a pick, and I really just treated it like a guitar. And didn't have many tricks in the back as far as like bass riffs and stuff. So it took me, I want to say, about a year or two to kind of acclimate where it was
Hmm.
comfortable. And then once it clicked, then I fell in love, but it was definitely a transition. I mean, I
Yeah.
just really wanted to play guitar. And and what happened was I actually went to ACC, Austin Community College,
Yeah.
and I was Ronnie and I both were actually going there and taking commercial music management. And for one of my classes, I took applied bass and had this instructor, and I went to his house. It was a private lesson, and I just told him, I was like, look, I'm already playing bass in a band we're doing, such and such. And I really just want to learn how to play with my fingers, and ditch the pick and just get more comfortable. And so that's really all we focused on. And I really just that one semester, I really got a lot out of it. And after that, really never played with a pick again. And that's when I kind of fell in love with it, that groove and the bass as a separate instrument. And then come to find out, I realized that the guy that was teaching me this whole time, I didn't realize until afterwards, he was actually the original bass player for Spoon.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, so that was pretty cool when I found that out. And but yeah, so that was the turning point for me with bass, was that.
Yeah, because I know it's kind of one of those things like um I could never play bass because I played it like a guitar, but my
Mhm.
buddy is like kind of he started off in drums in high school. He played so he could play drums. He could kind of play guitar, more chordsy type stuff, less leadsy, but great bass player. And when we used to always play, like as a guitarist, I would always get off on hearing the bass lines, the groove. And I was like, man, I wish I could do that. And I still kind of like whenever I listen to music, I pick up on the bass lines almost more so than the guitar and whatnot. But like for myself, I'm like, man, I would never know where to start, where to begin, because I play and think like a guitar player.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
it's a
love the bass.
it helps to have the drums. That was one thing. It's like I have a hard time. practicing bass unless there's a drum beat, because I feel like I'm just always playing with the drums, um, which is the opposite with the guitar. I can sit and play guitar all day just by myself. But the bass, I feel like it's part of the groove of I mean, ideally the full band being there. That's when I like to like jam and practice and stuff, which probably not great. I should be able to just practice on my own. But yeah, for me, it's a band experience. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I literally learned bass with a band,
Right.
so I didn't start with bass, by myself. So, um, yeah,
How's the
but
progression
it's all about
been
the groove.
for how's the progression been for Audic Empire? Once you guys dissolved, what was it, head change? Head
Yeah.
once that dissolved, um, you guys formed Audic Empire, and I know you and Ronnie had to have said something like, okay, this is going to be different. This is how it's going to be different, or we're going to make this kind of, I would say, last, versus kind of like something that
Mhm.
might dissolve. How was there a discussion when y'all started it that y'all wanted it to be different, that you had a different mission, that you were looking long term? Because what, you guys have been a band for about 10 years now?
Yeah, a little more than that now. It's funny. It's my default is always to say 10 years, but I think it's more like 12 or
Oh,
13 years
wow.
now, something like that. Um, but yeah, I think if you take the first album we have available on Spotify, it might be like 10 years. But there was a couple of years of getting things in order, and we had an EP that's not available anywhere
Oh, okay.
for a good reason. Um, but yeah, as far as a conversation about that, if we had it, I don't remember it. But also, I think the first conversations about Audic Empire, or at the time the unnamed band, because we didn't come up with the name till later. I would say it was probably Ronnie and Carver, because I think they're the ones that actually started it, at least the idea of it, and then I ended up going to, I think, either the first or the second practice. So and kind of a funny thing about it is the layout of the band was completely different back then. Ronnie actually played keys and sang.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was like up front with a big keyboard, and then I'm pretty sure Carver was also on keys, but he was doing more like the sound effects and stuff like he does now. And then we had two other guitarists, and then me on bass and vocals and the drums. So it was a weird setup. I haven't seen another band with that setup before. But obviously over the years things changed and everything. But that was how it was structured before. Um, and so it was a real different vibe. Yeah, if you can find that EP somewhere, you
Well,
can
it's
kind of
funny
hear.
because
God.
we saw a band in Houston once, and man, I don't know when it was. It had to have been like early or maybe mid 2000s, but I want to feel like they had one or two keyboardists. But the crazy thing I remember the most was like they were kind of this heavier band, and the thing that stuck out to me the most was I was like, how does somebody like jam the keyboard so heavy? Kind of like,
Yeah.
there's a certain groove. I think like if you were listening to like Billy Joel or Elton John, but then also like let's say like Roger Rivas from the Agrolites, or like the Keys and the Organically Good Trio, it's very different. It's more kind of smooth and groove versus like, and so it was so crazy to kind of see keyboard frontmen who were kind of headbanging in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was
Yeah,
odd.
it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, most of the grit comes from the guitars, the overdriven guitars. So doing the keys. What's actually funny, I guess Ronnie's keyboard he was using at the time actually had a tube on it. I can't. I wish I could remember what model keyboard that was, but it actually had like a tube on there, and so it had kind of a warm, little overdriven tone to it. It was pretty cool.
So how's the progression been? So you guys started it off, was it kind of the same? You did your basic like any gig you could get, we're gonna play the pool, pizza spots and whatnot. And then kind of when did it transition to like, hey, this is an idea to I think we got something here that's now been going for 12 years.
Yeah, so I guess I want to say one of our first gigs with Audic Empire. Well, okay, so let me think. I have to kind of, it's been a while, so I'm trying to think back that far. Um, we played Ruda Maya. Are you familiar with them? Yeah. So we that was one of our first gigs, and back when Ashes of Babylon was a band, and we played with them, and I think that was more of like a taste of like what a real gig is like, you know. Even at the though at the time, I mean, I don't know how many people we were actually playing for, but it was like, okay, this is actually pretty legit, you know. And then we played out at the Music Ranch. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not,
Never been out
but
there.
it's so we played out there and got some fans and stuff, and everyone was partying. It was like an after party for some band. I can't remember. Um, and so it was like, okay, I think we could actually do this. You know, we got some people that are actually digging us, giving us a lot of compliments and stuff, and not telling us to get off the stage, which happened with Head Change. We would just, I mean, we were partying and getting fucked up, and we're still learning how to play and everything. So it was definitely a different vibe once we got all of us up there and we're playing some real gigs. And yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It was a slow progress, but you know, just getting some of those opener spots with some bigger bands, being able to feel what a legit crowd is like that dug our music, you know. And I think that just yeah, helped kind of solidify the idea of like, hey, you know, we actually might be able to do this, you know. And
I mean,
so
if you say
and
that time though, there wasn't even social media or well, it wasn't super prevalent, was it?
no, it was different. I mean, I remember setting up our I mean, it had to have been after MySpace. So maybe it was early Facebook. I was setting up our actual Facebook page and stuff, and it was like, oh yeah, I guess we need to do this. You know, it wasn't like we have to do this. You know,
Right.
it was more just like I think this is one of the steps you take. So it's definitely nowhere near as important as it is now. To just like all of the, I mean, the idea of content and all that kind of stuff was just not even in the not a phrase we would even think of back then. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Like so much of the industry now is it really is just doing little bite-sized segments and putting them online and just consistently posting stuff to try to engage with people. But yeah, when we started this thing, it was more just like, where can we get gigs? How do we get in front of people? How do we go out there and, you know, tell people our names so they can come to the next gig? You know, it was the old school way of doing stuff. So we've seen that change in the industry just in that short period of time that we've been together.
And how did you guys so you guys started off kind of grassroots, basic shit like Facebook, whatever, but um did you notice when social media came in, started becoming more popular, did it increase your listenership? Did that really
Um,
help propel? I mean, were you able to tell, like, let's say in the numbers, the crowds, whatever? I mean, just that kind of engagement with your fans, I guess. Um, or was it
yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, I
more
think,
word of mouth?
I mean, I feel like it was word of mouth for a long time and going on the road. I mean, we did tours really early on in our career, like probably before we should have, and played for, you know, two people and stuff, which, I mean, I think that's part of it. Every band does that.
Right.
But, I mean, we did a winter tour up to Colorado. I mean, we'd only been in a band for like 2 years, I want to say, or something. And it was and but that's how we got fans. And the next time we went back, we had more people and stuff. And it really was just seeing them in person and stuff. And I think it while I probably social media was helping at that point because they could see when we were coming back and all that stuff. But I think at a certain point, I just started noticing, you know, at shows, people coming up and being like, "Oh, I saw you guys were doing this or doing this," and you know, because of some post that we made or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh, that's crazy!" So people actually are like seeing what we do and remembering, like, they know who we are individually. They know who I am, and I don't know. It was kind of crazy, which, to say that now, it's like, well, duh, that's like everything now. But um, I just kind of remember it clicking. And I think, and Ronnie kind of, hit it home to me and stuff. He's like, people actually know what we're doing. People recognize us. People will know who you are. Like, you got to like post and let people know what you're doing, and do that more. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess it is part of the business. So, um, but yeah, I think it's just kind of slowly happened over time, and just kind of slowly started realizing it. And yeah, now it's everything, man. And unfortunately,
It's
I don't
almost
like
like
doing it too much.
expected. Yeah, it's almost
Yeah,
expected, like a
yeah. A lot
requirement.
of times I'm just like, man, I just want to write a song. I just want to get it ready and then put it out and then get on to the next thing. And it's like, no, you got to do all the promotion. You got to do the videos. You got to, make, engaging content and stuff. And it's like, okay, it's another art form, and just part of the business.
Yeah, well, and if you're not relying on a record company or having to hash out a percentage of your earnings for the marketing team, then
Yeah,
it's kind of part
that's
of
the
it.
other alternative. That's the other alternative. I don't want to do that either. So I think I prefer this for sure.
So what was the first time that you were like, you got like, you guys, whether it's you got to open a memorable show, a memorable artist, something that you were like, oh, hell yeah, like we're definitely leveling up.
Yeah, yeah. Man, honestly, there's been a lot of those along the way. And I was just telling somebody this the other day. It was like, how do it was there's there's a lot of times when it's like get really down and almost like want to give up, because it's like, I just don't know where this is going. Are we stagnant? Are we not going anywhere? And then something will come along, and then it's like, oh fuck yeah, and it'll be with this bigger band, or we hit this like with this great audience one night, and just it's like, oh man, it kind of it reminds you of where you're at. It reminds you to be grateful, and then it shows you what is to come, and what's down the road if you just keep pushing at it. And so there's been a lot of those. I mean, along the years, just consistently, and it seems like they always happen at just the right moment. And I would say the most recent one was probably a Reggae Rise Up, going out to Vegas and just being around. I mean, we were like the second band that played, we're way down here, but it was just so cool to be around all of those, bands that we've looked up to for all of these years, and really helped shape our sound and stuff. And I mean, yeah, it was just having our name among all of those artists and being able to be in the green room and talk to these guys and stuff. It was just so cool
It's
and
like the peers
humbling,
you want to
and
have.
yes,
They're kind
exactly.
of like your peers, but maybe one or two steps ahead of you in the game.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are like 100 steps. I mean, our green room was like right across from Cypress Hills. I was like, holy shit, you know.
Yeah.
So it slightly was there, and all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So, it's those are the kind of opportunities and the gigs that just kind of, you know both humble you, and then also remind you like, hey, you're on the right path. Just keep it
Right.
up.
Yeah,
The big
I
things are
heard
gonna
like a
happen.
mindset mentor guy. He said, you can't control the time, the timing of everything, how long it's going to take. Um, and so, but you can kind of get a gauge on, are you headed in the right direction?
Right.
Because, like with you guys, I mean, I haven't been podcasting less than a year, but it's been, whether it's the levels, whatever, you kind of, like you said, there's some points you're like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it anything? And then something happens, something comes along, and it kind of, hey, I'm headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
And, because a lot of people don't realize how mentally exhausting it can be to, I don't know if you want to call it a profession, a dream, whatever it is, to have something that you have no idea when it's gonna take off, you know.
Yes.
at the right
There's
time.
yeah, there's not a way to do it. You know, there's not a roadmap. It's very organic, and it's, you know, it could happen a million different ways. There's For as many opportunities and ways that you can, you know, get to that next level, there's just as many pitfalls. And there's not always a right way to go with anything. It's, you know, maybe this will work or maybe this will work better. What are we going to do? You know? And so it's nice to have that control and be able to kind of, you know, control your own destiny, you know, but
Yeah.
it can be very stressful. I mean, and it is very stressful, you know, that like, you know, I'm not working in a company and then there's that promotion that I'm going to get at this certain amount of time. And, you know, and if I just keep putting in the hours, then I'll get up to this. That's not how it works. You know, there's
Right.
no telling when we'll get to that next level and if we will, and we might skip a bunch of levels, you know, if something big happens. So yeah, it's, there's a lot of unknowns, man. And it can kind of weigh on you, but you just gotta stick with it.
How do you deal with that? Because one of the things that I like to talk about, I like to highlight is, I always like how people get from where they were to where they are. But then also, um, because this is what I do, I've been interested in music my whole life, and then comedy, of course, too. They're all very similar in that you could do it for 10 years and nobody knows who the hell you are, or you could do it for 10 years and maybe one thing just launches you into the stratosphere. Like
Right.
Matt Rife was a perfect example as a comedian. I mean, I think he's been out there grinding, and you know, maybe some of his clips or shorts went viral, but then he just blew up. But
Yep.
how do you mentally, spiritually, um, say deal with that, but like kind of keep it contained and kind of stay positive, or keep that outlook?
I think a big one for me, and I tell my guys this all the time, is let's just do it better each time. You know, let's tweak something. Let's learn from the last show, the last rehearsal, the last song, the last release, whatever it is, and let's apply what worked. And then the stuff that maybe didn't or that we could do better, let's do it better on this next one. And so each time, even if it doesn't do as good, not as many people show up to whatever it is, at least we're giving it a little more each time. And so all of the years that we're not quote making it, because I don't even believe there is a making it, but each year that goes by, at least we're getting stronger, we're getting better, we're getting tighter, our songwriting is getting better. Whatever it is, we're learning and we're growing. So when those our opportunities do arise, we're better prepared for them. So then I can look at, you know, oh, we're in the same spot as we were last year. Well, that's fine because now we're even more prepared for that next spot. Um, One thing I thank God that we didn't blow up at year 5, because me personally, I wasn't ready for that. I mean, I would have been a mess.
You
I
thought you
mean, there's a
were.
lot of people. Yeah, I thought I was. I thought that's what I wanted. I thought that's what I needed. And I thought I was ready, but I wasn't. I was a mess, you know, and I would have been even more of a mess, you know. And most people know this by now, but you know, I'm 2.5 years sober, and when I was using, even in the first year of getting sober, you know, it wouldn't have been good if we would have gotten, you know, a lot of recognition and really blown up or something, because it just I would have gone further into my addiction or relapsed or whatever. So it's good that it's taken this long. And also I think we're just much tighter now. And I'm a better songwriter, better, you know, we've learned a lot in that amount of time. So I wouldn't sacrifice any of that for earlier success. And so applying that kind of mentality, I can look at everything as, look, this is happening the way it needs to happen and the way it's supposed to happen. And so, and when you look at it that way, it takes all of and you try to take all of the ego out of it. I think ego is a big thing. Um, Lose the ego. Don't compare yourself to other artists and musicians that are better than getting more recognition or more followers or better than you just musically or whatever, look at those people as inspiration, look at what they're doing and try to apply that in your own way. And so, yeah, I think that's the way. If you do all of those things, I think it makes everything a lot easier, and you can be more patient, and you can really just put in your best, and that's really all you can do.
So I noticed, you said you were 2.5 years sober, and I don't drink. I take an edible every now and again, and maybe a
I will say
microdose.
I'm Cali sober. I need
Yeah,
to preface that.
yeah.
I
So
don't
I
smoke.
don't.
I don't really smoke a lot, but I do a little bit. I take edibles at night to go to sleep,
Yeah,
and
I
I'll
do
smoke
too.
every now and then. But yeah,
Yeah, I drink. I haven't drank in June will be a year, and then actually 2 days from now will be 1 year no kratom, which that was a horrible fucking disaster.
yeah, yeah.
Over the counter
I've heard
shit
some
that.
stories. I've heard some stories
Oh
about
man,
that.
it's it attaches to the opioid receptors, and it's hell
Yep.
to kick. But what um what what was your poison, and kind of when did you start dabbling? And because I know, like, kind of the era I grew up in, um rock and roll and drugs and bad habits and partying all kind of went hand in hand, and that was part of the allure. And I can
Yeah.
remember you know cracking a beer or taking a couple of shots, and it's like, oh, we're tuning up, we're getting ready
Yep.
to play. And so very, very similar. And I know too, because I kind of want to explore the sobriety part with, do you think it impacted playing for better, for worse? Because I think they kind of start to meld together at some point, that maybe you think you can't do one without the other. But um, when did you start dabbling? When did you know it was a problem? And did you
Mm.
think stopping was going to impact your playing? Did it? Or how is it different than what you thought, other than better?
Yeah. So I'll start at the last point there first. When I was getting sober, I did worry about it affecting my songwriting and stuff because um, a lot of my music, um, I mean, I always wrote and I was at least drinking,
Right.
and I mean, a lot of writers do that because you want your first draft, you don't want to think about it too much, you don't want to self edit, and you get the stuff down, and then you can go back and edit later. And so it was a really good method for me, and so I worried about that. I also wrote a lot of songs on speed because I would be up all night and jamming and stuff. But one thing I realized once I did get sober is it took a while, but I really didn't need it. And I actually wrote a lot more and more quality when I was sober. And it also gave me more to write about because I was all constantly numbing my emotions. I was every kind of issue that I would have, I would go to drink. And, they always say that this pour me another drink. It's
Yeah.
like, and whether it was good or bad, it's like I needed a drink. And so when I didn't have that to kind of numb everything and make everything better, then it was, I went to writing, I went to playing music, and it actually gave me more of an outlet, and I felt like my lyrics were a lot more meaningful at that point. So it was the opposite effect. My writing got better, and on top of that, most importantly, just being able to manage my life became a lot easier. And I have more time to focus on a lot of the aspects of managing a band and taking care of all of the things that go along with it. Now, honestly, I don't know how the fuck I did what I did when I was drinking and using. Um, and a lot of times I didn't do anything. A lot of times I was, we kind of joke about I was the biggest fuck up in the band for the majority of the band. And now I'm kind of the responsible one that's doing a lot of the stuff, like let's say James 5 years ago wouldn't be creating spreadsheets with all of our expenses and payroll and stuff. Like
Yeah.
the bill, I like, fuck no, you're not gonna manage the money, you fucking drunk. So it's kind of a crazy night and day difference with me as a person, and that also translates to music and the band as well. So everything improved when I got sober. I mean, again, I can't express that enough. Um, as far as my history with drugs and alcohol, it goes back to junior high. I mean, once I started drinking with my friends and smoking weed, that's like all I wanted to do. Every weekend was going to parties and stuff. And I think that was kind of like the normal kind of thing for that age.
Yeah.
But it quickly became abnormal use, and where, you know, I was taking ecstasy every day, and ended up, I moved out at 17 and dropped out of high school and just sold drugs. And I was in Dallas, and I was driving from Plano. I was buying a bunch of ecstasy in Dallas and driving it to Plano to all my high school friends, and and basically whatever I had left, that was what I was taking. And so I was just constantly fucked up. Come to realize later, I was addicted to the speed that was probably in it. So
Yeah.
that ended up being my drug of choice later on. And I would have it, it's like, I think most people that had that lifestyle or at least a lot, um, I would have these bouts of sobriety, and then if everything's kind of normalizes, and then something would happen, and I'd fall into something. And long story short, the worst that I got, I mean, I was started shooting up speed, and I was living in a shed, and I was basically just a drug dealer, and it got really bad, and I ended up getting off of that, and I was clean for years, but I was just drinking a lot, and to kind of compensate with that. And it got to a point where it was too hard to manage, and I couldn't trust myself when I was drinking, and especially I was a binge drinker. So um you know I would relapse, and shit, I did speed, and
Guilty.
yeah, and a bunch of different things fell into place at the right time, and I found my now wife and everything, and I realized I was hurting her, and I was going to lose her. I was not able to manage myself, and I actually had a accidental trip that illuminated a lot of things. I had taken what I thought was half a hit of acid, and I think I had taken, and later I realized that I had taken mushrooms from several different people, and I think I might have dosed from several different people too around at a party. And long story short, I did this incredibly strong, terrible trip, and I wasn't normal for days after that. And I had all these dreams and stuff, and it was all about my alcohol use and substance abuse. And yeah, it lined up a lot of things in my head. And I would say it was probably a week after that was my sobriety date. And yeah, man, it was the best decision I've ever made. But yeah, it's been a lifelong struggle, man. I've been in and out of jail, rehab, like my whole adult life. So this is the most clear-headed and normal I've ever felt. My new normal, I guess. But yeah, it took a while, though. I would say the first year was really uncomfortable. I always thought I had a lot of social anxiety, but I think it was because I just had a hard time dealing with sobriety, and then even being fucked up would stop working after a while to cope with that. And what I've realized now, this far into my sobriety, is that I don't really even think I have as much social anxiety as I thought I had. I think I was just never comfortable in my own skin, because I was always self-medicating. And so now, for the first time, I really feel free, like I don't need something constantly. So
Right.
it's been really liberating, and I've been able to really focus on music, focus on my business, and focus relationships and everything. So it's just been, yeah, man, I highly suggest it to anybody that's struggling. It's really just do it for yourself
Yeah.
and make that leap because it's worth it.
Yeah, I had had a like a 2 year where I didn't drink or something, and then it was like a 4th of July and drank, and then of course, that lasts, there's always these bouts of, oh, I made 90 days or something, and then you go back and then, you're just like for me, like if you can drink and it doesn't turn you into a raging asshole like it does me, then more power to you. Good for you.
Yeah.
But I'm the kind of person that I know me, and it's me and Jameson, me and John Jameson, and man, it's like, you know, if Conor McGregor met Cheech and Chong, kind of, um, a little violent Mexican leprechaun just talking shit, and so I'm like, I just stay away from it. I'm like, it's no good for me. Um,
Yeah.
and then, and then
It's
it's just I want either more. I like the come up, I don't like the come down. But it's like after once I realized what it was kind of doing to my brain, those days after of kind of being depressed and then trying to get your dopamine kind of back up to normal.
Just real quick, after you're done listening to this amazing episode on this pretty freaking sweet podcast, give it a 5-star rating, and then head on over to the Podcast Connection Network and check out all the other amazing podcasts that we got over there. This is a plug. I got one too. It's called The Nonchalant Perfectionist. Check us all out. The link, you know where the link's going to be in the episode's description.
I was like, I was just like, I gotta stop because I'd used alcohol to get off kratom, and that's why those sobriety dates are kind of close. And you know, then once I stopped, I was listening to a podcast, and when they explained what it did to your brain, it just kind of clicked for me, and I felt super depressed, and I'm like, man, like I'm gonna have to ride out this kind of depression and being uncomfortable, um, for a little bit to get my dopamine
mhm.
levels back to normal. And once I kind of got them back, I was like a little bit, where I wasn't so depressed. I was like, man, I just gotta keep going. I can't chance it. I can't do it anymore. And then of course you're already kind of, somewhat mentally and a little bit physically in pain because I didn't like DT or anything, but you feel like shit. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, if you're gonna feel like shit, then you might as well work out and be sore anyway and get some dopamine from that. And so it was like I kind of just started walking. Sometimes I'd go for 2 4 mile walks a day. Um, all that, and then, I would say a little bit of some cannabis edibles and a little microdosing to kind of try to rewire my thought process and my brain
Yeah.
as it relates to that. And, you know, um, it's worked for me. And, I just want to kind of continue on, but it's definitely kind of, a passion of mine that I like to talk to other people who've gone through it and hear about their, whether it's their struggle, but also how they were kind of able to overcome it. But I think one of the positive things that you can kind of see nowadays is it's becoming a little more, I would say, acceptable to kind of be sober or to not drink. And when
Yeah.
if you stop drinking, you will notice, man, like how many Modelo commercials, especially like if you're watching a UFC event. But man, they just put alcohol everywhere. It seems
Oh
in the
yeah.
media, like how acceptable it is. And I'm just like, uh, yeah, I don't know. I'm glad, I have a 10-year-old daughter, and of course that's one of the things I worry about as well as the genetics, but also is I know she hasn't seen me at my finest, and maybe that little bit will help her to never want to drink. I would hope. Just
Yeah.
because I don't want her to have the same struggles I did, feeling like a dog chasing your tail until you can finally stop, or what I say is kind of like being on a merry-go-round that you got to jump off of and eat shit. And, eventually you'll walk it off and feel better. But, if you're stuck in that damn merry-go-round, that cycle, it's hell to get out of.
Yeah, it's all about the habit, man, and like you said, just getting used to feeling uncomfortable and getting through that because it's, but each day gets a little easier. And like I said, I mean, it took me a good year to really get to where I was out in public and comfortable. And I think I told my wife actually, it was a show. We were playing a daytime show. It was a festival. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was like San Antonio Reggae Fest or something. And I was out and I was talking to some people and talking to some people in the crowd and everything, just kind of small talking and stuff. And then I walked off with her. I was like, that was really easy. I wasn't thinking about, how uncomfortable I am and like how difficult it is to get the words out and stuff. I was like, I feel like I used to when I had a couple of drinks. I was
Yeah.
like, and that it's feeling like natural now. And that was the first time I kind of noticed it. And man, I tell you, once that happens, it's just like, oh, like this huge weight just got lifted off my shoulders. It's like, oh, I can be a normal person now, And yeah, man, it's but I tell you what, the not having that feeling of, coming off of a bender and just laying in bed, having my heart pounding, worrying about what I had done the last day or two, worrying about how much money I spent, having to check my bank account, having to worry about, look at my recent calls and texts and what dumb shit that I said or did, not having that to ever worry about that again is so that alone is worth it. Because I mean that was so much of my life. You had these extreme highs of the partying and in that moment, but you look at it, it's such a small aspect of what you're actually dealing with when you're in that. And most of it, I refer to it as like debits and credits. You're living your life on credit when you're doing that. It's I'm having my fun now, and I got to pay for it later, and I have to pay for it with interest. And now, when I'm doing something like eating healthy and going and working out and getting the exercise, doing the things that I got to do, then I know that I'm going to feel better later. And it's like the interest in the opposite way. I'm gaining interest with that, and each time it's better, it's easier, and it's just, so I'm trying to live my life with debits instead of credits. And that's just, I feel like that's a whole mentality that and habits that you have to build. But yeah, once you start seeing it that way, and once it gets comfortable doing it that way, it's just so much better.
Now, some was the exercise something you picked up like going into sobriety, or was it kind of afterwards you're like, maybe I should start doing this, or I want to feel better, or
It was the exercise was something that I had done for a long time. And I think that I used to actually, I worked out as a way to contrast the lifestyle that I was living. It was
okay,
like, well, if I eat healthy and I work out, then that'll make up for the fact that I'm drinking and stuff. So it was kind of a way that I was, combating all
justifying
of
it to
that.
yourself?
Yeah, and not to say, and then there were certain periods of time when I would not work out at all. And when I quit doing hard drugs and I was just started drinking, I actually it was like the most unhealthy I'd ever been. I was not exercising at all. I was eating Ben and Jerry's ice cream with vodka in it. I would pour vodka in it and mix it and eat that, and then drink a bunch of Red Bulls because I was used to all the speed. So it was
Yeah.
like, oh, I was just get a bunch of caffeine. So it was like Red Bull and ice cream and vodka, and then I would drink IPAs, and I was just a fucking mess. I blew up. I gained like all this weight. There's pictures of us. If you see pictures of Audic Empire, and you're wondering who this guy with
I
the
saw
fat guy with the
one.
big beard.
You were sitting
Yeah.
at the
So
bar.
yeah. So yeah, that was me. And I got that went on for a little while, and then I was like, "Fuck this," and I kept drinking, but I was like, "I'm just gonna drink vodka sodas, and I'm gonna hit the gym." So I was like, being the healthy alcoholic, and I think that's a kind of a common thing now too. There's a lot of people
Jumbo
doing that.
shrimp.
I see yeah. So so I did that for a while, but then once I quit drinking, it was like that was like that was the last unhealthy thing that I did, was the alcohol. And so when I cut that out, it was like, oh, I guess I'm just this really healthy person. So then I kind of kicked it in, and I became a little obsessive, because then, as I'm sure you are, most addicts, we got to be obsessed about something. And so I just gravitated towards the health and fitness thing. And so I became a little crazy with it. I mean, counting every single macro and all that stuff like I was bodybuilding or something. I've since relaxed a little bit
Yeah,
and
my
taken it
one
down
of the
to
funniest
a
posts
manageable level.
one of the funniest posts I think I saw was you were weighing out chicken breast and you're like, I used to slang dope off this scale, or now I'm weighing out chicken breast. I'm like,
Yeah, I used to slang dope from my kitchen. Now I'm using my scale for my chicken. That's what it is. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So I was a little crazy with it, but I think it was healthy. I needed some kind of outlet, other than music, because music, I mean, for better or for worse, was tied so much into me drinking and stuff. So, I still was doing that a lot, but I needed something that I can just separate myself and do something completely. You can't drink, and you can't really think about drinking if you're working out,
yeah,
and doing all that. So I got really into that, and I think it was healthy at the time for what I was going through. But then now I've been able to bring it down to a manageable level, for more long term, just staying healthy as opposed to being absolutely obsessed.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, I totally get it because it's kind of one of those things of, I guess with sobriety, it's like you gotta stay busy. Um,
yes, 100%.
and but did you find kind of like the unexpected benefit was that it helped you maintain your sobriety? And are you able, going back to understanding, um, are you comfortable sitting with the discomfort now where you used to numb it out? For me, like I always say, like if I feel bad, I kind of torture myself, or I sit with the discomfort, and it
Hmm.
fucking sucks. But sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like that's the only way to do it, whether it's journaling, um, or you feel like you're gonna have a panic attack because of something, and you know, but just sitting with that discomfort. Um, how are you with that since like becoming sober?
I would say it's interesting because I don't have a lot of opportunities to sit with things. The reason I say that is because I've made it so that I am super busy. Like I always tell people, if I'm not working, I'm still working. Um, that's I think another reason I probably subconsciously started doing the solo project also, because then it's like I really have no downtime, because I'm also a contractor, so that's my day job, which keeps me really busy. Recently, that's why it took a while for us
Hmm.
to set this up. I was finishing up a job. I've been working 11-hour days for months. And so I haven't had much time to do anything. But when I'm not working, I don't have any clients, or I'm waiting on a client for a week or whatever. I always had the Audic Empire stuff to do, and I'd be, comping a song or whatever, and getting it ready to send off, and working on artwork or something like that. And then I would have to wait. I'd have to wait on someone to turn in parts, or I'd have to wait on the producer, or wait on whatever it was, the release or whatever like that. And um, and I was like, well, I need to work on something else, like I can't just sit here. And so I think so. Yeah, that being said, I always try to have a to-do list, and a bunch of things I got to get done. So there's really no, I always say that, it's like that age-old saying of idle hands are the devil's playground. It's
Yeah.
like I just don't give myself opportunities to sit with anything. But if there is some time where I got to sit and wait on something or whatever, and I don't have, I try not to just get lost on my phone a lot. And so sometimes I will just kind of close my eyes and just sit. And I don't know if that's I've never been good at meditating, but maybe just, focus on my breath, and, just relax and try not to think about things I got to do. try not to think about things I was doing and just try to be in the present,
It's
and
hard.
it is surprisingly hard.
I do it for
And
5 minutes in the morning. I revamped my
yeah.
morning routine to like I used to wake up and check the news and all this shit because I think I worked in healthcare. I actually worked at downtown Austin at the main hot BRAC for 6 years nights in the
Oh,
ER.
okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think, you come from that background and then I was a healthcare manager and you're always looking like you have to wake up and hit the ground running, like who's called in? Is there any emergencies? Is traffic shut down? Are we rained out? Blah, 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 blah. And it kind of became this habit. And recently, a couple weeks ago, I said, all right, like your consumption, everything you consume, not just drugs, alcohol, and food, but I was like, I'm gonna stop like reading the news, doing anything with the phone first thing in the morning. I'm gonna drink some water and sit in this podcast area. I have a nice little chair and I sit there and I set a timer for 5 minutes and I try as much as I can to be present, kind of like you said, not think about what I got coming up. 5 minutes is surprisingly difficult. You're sitting there like a minute in, like, damn, I got a stuffy nose. It's probably gonna rain. It's
Yeah.
the allergies or cedar or something like that. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't need to be thinking about this. I'm actually trying not to think about this. And so it's been interesting, but that's only kind of because I wake up early and have the time.
Yeah.
Usually I think when I had other jobs and maybe I didn't have the time to sit for 5 minutes because you're rushing out the door or depending I don't like to rush, so I typically try to wake up early. Um, or I naturally get up early anyway. My body just wakes me up somewhere between 3 and 5 and I get up.
No, that's early. That's really early.
Yeah, well,
I was gonna say,
I've tried to kind of I don't sleep great. Um so I've tried to use lack of sleep to my advantage. And so if I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and everybody's asleep, like I can come in and edit a podcast. If you're gonna sit through a couple hours of something, editing's kind of the thing as I'm sure it is with music and trying to get things perfect and um I'll do stuff like that. So I've just been kind of
yeah.
using it to my advantage. But um, do you, so you don't like to have that downtime. You like to keep yourself busy. How do you kind of manage like contracting, band, sobriety, all of it together, or is it kind of the contracting where you get these little breaks, you're waiting on a client that gives you kind of the room to manage all these different things?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way. So one thing that happens when I'm not doing doing something
Hmm.
is, instead of using that time to just mentally focus and stay in the present and all that stuff that I know I should be doing, I have this immense amount of guilt. Like, you know, for example, right now my van is in the shop. I just finished that job. I've got multiple clients waiting on me right now, but I have to put it off because I've got my van in the shop. Normally, if my van was in the shop, I would be really stressed out about it. But right now, I'm kind of glad because it gives me an excuse to take that time off from that work and be able to say, there's nothing I could do about it. My van's in the shop. So I don't have to feel that guilt. So it's like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders, even though I have my van in the shop and I gotta pay for repairs, which is kind of fucked up, but it's just how my mind works. So yeah, I mean, basically I've got all of these things, so when there is a gap in something, I've got something else to fill its place. um so that can just kind of constantly stay busy. But the other thing is, I kind of like when there's nothing going on, because I'll make a routine. Like during this last summer, I had a kind of a gap between clients for a while, and we were putting some music out and stuff, but it didn't take all of my time. So I was able to wake up at a certain time. I went out and I had a routine. I love having a routine. And so I did, the same breakfast every morning. I would go out and I had like lemon water or whatever, and I would do like an ab workout on the patio, and I would lay out. I would get some sun, and then that would be like my time to like,
Hmm.
you know, focus and be present and stuff. But I felt like I was doing something also. I was getting some sun,
Yeah.
and uh, and then I would go to the gym and work out, and in between my sets I wouldn't use my phone. I would just, I guess that's one time that I do kind of able to wind down and just, be present, and is between sets when I'm working out, but I'm still doing something,
Right.
so I don't have the guilt of not doing something. And so yeah, so having those, being able to have that routine was nice for a while, and then going back to work was a little hard. And so sometimes when I'm working, I'll kind of fantasize about like, oh man, I remember that's last summer, it was really nice. I was able to do all these things. But one thing I did notice though is, during that time though, I was still stressed because I didn't have any money coming in at that time
Right.
because I wasn't working. So I have to kind of accept the fact that the grass is always greener on the other side. No matter what I'm doing, I'm going to be feeling like I should do the other thing. And so I need to be more comfortable just focusing on what it is that I'm doing right now and do my best to enjoy that and be present in that. Um, and if I'm able to do that and then designate time for the other stuff, then I can manage and I can balance. I think the thing that makes balancing all of those things difficult is when I'm thinking about the other thing while I'm doing the thing that I'm working on. And as long as I can focus on, basically, it all comes down to the same thing we keep saying, being present. As long as I'm
Hmm.
able to stay present and be able to schedule and stuff, then it's fine. Um, and that's one thing, man. Dude, I wouldn't be able to do this if I was drinking. There's just no way, because I was always thinking about drinking no matter what I was doing. And every night, if I got to go home and drink, and if you're like me and when you're drinking, it's like, well, I'll just have another one before I go to bed, and I stay up, and then I've had 6 or 7 drinks, and it's 3 or 4 in the morning, and I got to go to work the next day, and so it fucks up everything. So there's no way I would be able to balance everything if I was still using.
Well, not
Um,
well.
yeah, yeah, I'd probably be able to do it, but I would be kicked off a job, or the hours wouldn't be the same, and I would be feeling like shit most of the time. I'm sure there would be some shortcuts here and there. So yeah, I'm able to do a lot more now than I used to be able to. And I think right now, yeah, the challenge is just staying focused and putting everything to what I'm currently doing at the moment, and not trying to multitask. I just listened to a I actually just listened to a podcast about multitasking, and it said it's bullshit. It was a term that was,
What was the
invented.
podcast? Because I feel like I heard something about this recently.
I want to say it was either I think it was Hidden Brain. I don't know if you've listened to that one
I haven't
before.
heard that one. I have to listen
Yeah,
to it.
it's really good. But yeah, they were talking about multitasking. It was like a buzzword that was just, they made it up, and I think it was a term that was used for computing power. They were talking, it was to sell computers because it could multitask, and then they started using it, and jobs and stuff is like, well, how well can you multitask?
Yeah.
And it's like you actually, every you can do more things, but they all kind of go to shit when you multitask. So it's not good to multitask. You should focus on one task at a time,
Yeah.
and you'll do it much better. And
I
take frequent breaks, and be able to reevaluate as you come back. So
I think Rob Dial from the Mindset Mentor, who's actually out of Austin, I think he says the same thing, kind of like he might have been the one that said multitasking, no bueno. Like maybe he focuses like 25-minute increments, set a
mhm.
timer, listen to binaural beats or something on YouTube in the background, and 25 minutes full focus. Or like his recommendation was like, okay, your top three things, you put them on a note card, and you're not going to pick up the second note card till the first one is done. You're going to kind of commit. And I kind of do that with like, I think about that all the time when I have to edit something. I'm like, because it's the last thing I kind of want to do because it takes the most time.
Yeah.
But man, but when you get it done and you kind of focus that energy, um, it it feels good. I mean,
Yeah.
I think last Sunday I edited two, and I had to sit there and listen to all of them and blah blah blah, and then listen to it back after you edit it. And but now I feel like I'm ahead, and so I'm able to like get you in here, and I'm like, oh well, because I have so many on the roster, I'm like, I can release yours as a bonus episode. Because right now I do once a week, and I'm thinking about going to twice a week because I've just got so many more people coming in to be interviewed. And so, kind of trying to figure out what works best and what balances for that. But, I'm similar in the same way with thinking and guilt as you, as a lot of times I Uber because that allows me to listen to a podcast and feel like I'm doing something, because I'm
Right.
making
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
money. Um, because if I'm just sitting in my room or the office, like listening to one, I feel like, man, I should be doing something else, or I can't just be doing that. And that's kind of the hard part about editing is when you have to listen to the whole thing because that's what you're actually working on.
Yeah.
So you can't really be thinking about the next thing. So yeah, it's been very interesting. But I would say I would think like if you look at it in a way, do you work for a company or you work for yourself as a contractor?
I'm self-employed. Yeah.
Okay. So
I've got my own company, and I'm kind of it's contractor, handyman. Like
yeah,
I do like hourly rates, work on people's houses. So
but that's cool. It's kind of like I think like myself, like, I do Uber, I do this, but if you look at success and you go, well, like today you get to spend time with your mom. How many other people, doing these basic things? I'll go see my dad later. Um, I get to go to the gym in the morning. I get to have this conversation with you. And it's like, even though it's, not the money I was making as a healthcare manager, um, what I get out of it is just way more fulfilling. And I felt like kind of that corporate world was, you know, being so out of control. Like there's so many things you can't control in a corporate environment that I think is what led to, it doesn't make sense to feel out of control and then go binge drink and get more out of control.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's so
Yeah,
stupid. Like when you think about it that way, you're like, man, I feel so out of control that I'm gonna fucking go home and drink and get myself more out of control.
yep,
When you think about it. And so it's kind of like it's been um freeing in that way, and that I actually feel like I can be who I am and do what I want to do. And so I think kind of you're in that similar situation as, you have the band, you have your solo project, you're getting to do all the things you want to do. And so, you know,
hmm
I would say like independent of how big Audic Empire is or where you want to go with it or your solo project, um, there's still a level of success that most people would probably love to have in terms of your position. Okay, they may not want their van in the shop and have to pay for that, but just these little things of like, hey, you're not having to show up at 7 a.m., and punch a clock
yeah,
and worry about somebody writing your ass up or shit like
yeah.
that. So,
Being in control of every aspect of my life is, you really can't put a price on that. It's because I do show up at 7 a.m. a lot of times at clients, but it's because I want to.
right.
It's because they're available, and it's like, hey, I do want to get an early start, but if this other day, I'm going to start at 10. As long as they're cool with it. I was never a great employee, but I'm a fantastic business owner. It's like my clients love me, but my bosses never really didn't like me because I like to do things my own way, and I don't work well on that. I like my own structure. I don't like
Right.
someone else's structure and having to abide by it,
Well, I say
which,
rules and laws are for people, who need them. And I think kind
Yeah.
of managers are the same way. Like I'm the same way. Like, I mean, I sat working on podcast shit Sunday for 11 hours and it didn't feel like it at all. I enjoyed it. And I got up at like 3 in the morning on a Sunday, was editing at 5 and, you know, but I absolutely loved it way more than like clocking in or
Yeah.
anything like that. Cause you can kind of reach a flow state with it. But you ever work an 11 or 12-hour day and then have to go play a show?
Yes, I've had to do that before. I've actually had to show up to a show with my work clothes covered in paint and dust and my work boots and all that shit. It's been a while. I usually now that was back when I was working for a company. I had a foreman and everything. But now that I work for myself, I'm good about not scheduling work days of shows. I would try to do that a few times, and it's hard to switch gears day of.
Yeah.
So I just like to give it's like, this day belongs to the band. It belongs to the promoters, the venue, the other bands, everything. Like I need to give that my undivided attention. Um, so I try not to juggle things around unless I absolutely have to. But yes, I've had to do that before, and it sucks.
When did you make that switch to owning your own thing?
Um, I want to say um, I went into business. That's a good question. I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago. Um, yeah, I've done. I have a very crazy kind of group of jobs that I've done. I've done everything from as far as the construction trade goes. I did commercial playground installations. I remodeled nightclubs. I painted houses. Did all kinds of stuff, and then I met a guy that did sales uh for a paint company and was like, "So you can paint?" I was like, "I mean, I painted some stuff for some people." And he got me into doing residential paint jobs, and I ran a crew of like 3 guys, and I didn't even know how to use a paint sprayer. I had to look up videos on YouTube and learn how to do it. It was a very stressful first month. Um, I felt like I was dreaming, about painting, and I'd wake up and have to go paint and for all day, 12-hour days, and uh, fortunately, I got the hang of it. I think I found is if you give a shit enough and want to do a good job, and that's your top priority, you can pretty much learn how to do anything and do a good job at it. Because I think that's like half of it is just really giving a shit about what you're doing. Um, and so, yeah, once I transitioned to that, and then I kind of moved into doing more just the handyman kind of stuff because I kind of knew how to do a lot of different things. And then that's where I kind of fell in, and I do a lot of like drywall repairs and stuff like that now. But yeah, for me, it's imperative for to work for yourself when you're running a band. I think you can be in a band and have a regular job and stuff, but I think um, trying to do all of the other stuff behind the scenes and everything, it would really be too much if I was having to work around an employer and worry about getting people to cover my shifts and all of that stuff. It's I know people do it, but it's crazy trying to do
Yeah.
that. I did that for years, and
Yeah.
it was just really difficult.
Me too. No more. Um,
Yeah.
so you said I know you keep yourself busy, and was this what led to your Raisin Hell solo work? Or kind of where did that come from? And you're like, well, I think I'm just gonna, I mean, I'm sure you've been writing songs by
hmm
yourself for a long time. And kind of you know, I saw a photo, sorry, I saw a post and it was funny because I guess Ronnie did his video, you had yours, and somebody was like, oh my gosh, is Audic Empire, you know, dissolving or
Oh yeah,
something
yeah,
or
yeah,
going
yeah,
on the
yeah,
back burner? And I saw you comment, no, no.
yeah,
You're like, I just have, both of y'all are writers. I mean, that's what you do.
yeah,
And it kind of makes sense that at some point, you know, you're going to want to do something that's a little bit different, even if it, is
yeah. So I guess this next song that I'm working on right now, for instance, this song, I say something about I've been living 24 years just to try to have some fun. I wrote it when I was 24, so it's
Hmm.
a 10-year-old song, and I mean 10 years old. I'm not 34, I'm 36, so it's a 12-year-old song, and so I've always kind of had that style of songwriting, the more kind of bluegrass country kind
Hmm.
of sound. And there was never a place for it in the band because I didn't want to change our sound.
Right.
Um, and so it was just this song that I would play at parties when we get together and play acoustic, and people are like, "What the fuck is that?" Everybody would surprise everybody. And then and yeah, so I just more and more I kept writing this stuff, and then when I got sober, I was writing a lot more, and I was a lot more on acoustic, and I was like, maybe I could do something with this, and I kind of kept, maybe I didn't want to split my time with that, and I worried that it might affect Audic, and stuff, so I wasn't really doing it. But then Ronnie had been working with Baby Bash, and he had been kind of pushing him to do a country thing too, and so he started talking about putting out something, and I was like, well, if he's going to be doing it, I mean, I might as well do it too. And then we can kind of support each other and do stuff. And me and him do acoustic sets anyways.
Right.
So it kind of worked out where I was saying it's like, well, okay, so we have Audic Empire, then we both do our solo stuff, and it's kind of we've got a different kind of vision of what that sound is. And then so this next track, I got Ronnie to do harmonies on it. I did bass on his track, and so we're kind of working together, but also separate,
Yeah.
And because a lot of times with Audic, I'll have a song and it's very personal to me, and stuff, and then but I want to give Ronnie a verse on it or something like that, and it'll be vice versa, and then like, well, I want to sing on it, and then he'll be like, I want to sing on that one, and it's like it doesn't really make sense. So it's like, well, this is something that's going to be solely mine, and I'll sing everything. It could be very personal to me, and I don't really, there's not any collaboration on it. It's just 100% me, Um, and so I thought it would be a good outlet for myself. Um, and yeah, it's just, and also it's like, I've got, if I could show you my computer right now of all of the song files that I have of tracks, I mean, I've got hundreds of songs, that doesn't mean they're all good, but it's just, I'm constantly writing, there's only so much we could put out with Audic Empire at a time,
Right.
because you want to span out releases and be able to have time to promote them, and then things get held up, and then we got to work on something, and then someone doesn't like this, we got to change that, and everything. It's a very long process to put out stuff, so it's like having something else, different genre, and be able to kind of release on my own schedule is just, it seemed like a good idea for me, and I think that's what's working for Ronnie as well, and so we'll see how it goes. If it gets to a point where it's conflicting too much and it doesn't make sense, then I'll just drop it. I don't care. Like I said on that comment also,
Hmm.
Audic Empire is always number one. I put the band first. This is something we've all been, Ronnie and I, and I mean, I guess Ronnie and I and Carver are the three original members, but we've been doing this for, like I said, close to 15 years. So, I want to, you know, see this through. But yeah, having a little solo project and everything, and it's kind of fun, just something different. But
Yeah, that was a great song. I love, man, I must have
thanks,
streamed
man. Yeah.
it repeatedly. I was in the woodlands over Easter, and I'd go for my morning walks, and I'd always start off with that song. And it gave me that the good part I like about getting drunk. The music gave me that vibe without having to drink. It reminded me of Hellraiser me.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like when you're like, you should have seen the other guy.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a so that was another kind of thing is I'm able to take these songs and I have like a grand vision of what I want it to be,
uh-huh.
which is not as easy when you have five other people. You know what I mean? So what I'm gonna do with this is I'm thinking four songs. It's gonna be an EP. and it's going to be the War Stories EP. So it's going to be all of my war stories of my drinking and drugging, and I can kind of take, each of these songs are all about that, and I can kind of take it and put it out and be like, there, that was me. That's the old me right there. And then I'll focus on another project after that and kind of put that all together. And I already have the artwork planned out and everything. I'm doing three more, like the cover art, like that I put out has the truck in the middle and everything. So I'm gonna have a different symbol for each song that represents it. So I'm able to like get like a big idea visually and musically and kind of encapsulate it and do like a collection. I wouldn't be able to do that in Audic because Ronnie's got his songs, I've got my songs. We kind of go back and forth, and it's a lot more complicated. But with this, I'm able to do kind of like this, concept, if you will.
Yeah, sounds like fun because at least it's too. It's almost like when I interviewed Kyle, he was like, being sober. He's like, I think, taking something in my head and making it real. He's like, I think that's my new fucking drug.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, because I get these crazy ideas, and then it's like, well, what can I do with this, And then put it down, and sometimes it sucks. I throw it out, but every now and then it's like, okay, I'm seeing it come to fruition, and it's fucking super cool. It's like the process. The process is both like a high, and then, but sometimes it's super frustrating, and you got to walk
Mhm.
away, and then you got to come back. It's like this process of just sculpting away at something. And yeah, it's definitely something I think I'm addicted to, is just, you know creating.
And was that even was the solo project even a blip on your radar 2 years ago?
I think it's always been something in the back of my mind, to be honest. It was just a matter of, you know I mean, a lot of it was fear, man. It's hard to put yourself out there by yourself.
Right.
I mean, granted, I that track that I put out, that's Kyle on drums, so at least I have him as a part of it. But it's my name on there, and it's my face and everything. And so it's like, ugh, if they don't like it, then they don't like me, because that is me. And so I think that was, it was kind of scary, and so I had to kind of get over that. And I think, yeah, it happened at the right time, because, like I said, I kind of became more comfortable in this amount of time and stuff, and so I'm comfortable enough to put myself out there in that way. And you know, when I was drinking and using, I probably would have done something crazy and try to create some fake image or something, and I got to do something big, and be something I'm not. And it's like, no, I'm okay just being myself now, and I'm and putting myself out as it is. And I think yeah, it was the right time to do it. But yeah, I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah, it's kind of one of these things of like, for people out there who might want to quit drinking or using the hard stuff, it's one of these things of looking and saying, um, if you'd asked me a year ago when I stopped drinking, did I think I would be here? Um, whether it be interviewing you, interviewing Kyle Smith. I'm going to be coming to Austin in a couple weeks to be a guest on a podcast in person. And so,
Nice.
it's like one of these things of going, while it was kind of a thought, your sobriety is kind of, people don't realize, I guess, how much they can get done with when they're sober. You know, you can get more, what is it, more done in 1 year sobriety than you can 10 years drinking. Um,
Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard that, but
oh
I believe
yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of one of
it.
these things of, like I look at your journey and, um, I guess just kind of curious as an overall arching theme, like, where you are now that you're sober, you're, um, working on a project that you've been thinking about. And, did is it good? Are you happy in that? Um, do you think your life's better than what you had imagined 5 years ago? Are you in a better place, or did you imagine
Absolutely.
is something more grandiose? Or or
Yeah,
less
no,
even.
yeah, I mean, I think again, it was the idea of, you know, blowing up, being like this big star, all this stuff. I mean, I think everybody in this business has those aspirations and dreams and stuff. And I think where I'm at now is so much better than that. You know, being sober, you know, being married, you know, I've got the best fucking wife ever, and who's super supportive. I've got a great group of guys, and I've got my sobriety and my mental health. Um, no, I think I'm way better off than I thought I would have been, because even if I had gotten what I thought I wanted back then, I wouldn't have been happy. You know, I would have been, you know, especially if I was still drinking and using and stuff. It was just such an empty existence, you know. If you're not mentally there and you don't have that support group and you don't have those people that really make it worthwhile, and you're not comfortable with yourself. So I would take this over, you know, the fame and all the women and all that shit that I thought I wanted before. You know, this is so much better. And so yes, I could say I'm definitely happy and positive. And that being said, now I want that fame, but but now I feel like I can go out there and I can really, you know, hustle and make things happen and be able to handle that kind of attention. And because at the end of the day, it's a business, and I wasn't looking at it like a business. I was looking at it like an excuse to party. I
Yeah.
was looking at it as you know, getting validation to make myself feel better and fill that hole that was in me that I couldn't fill with anything, you know. And I was trying to just throw whatever I could in there to get fucked up and hopefully feel better, you know. And I would for, you know, a few hours, and then, you know, back to the same shit and worse than before. So yes, I would say that I'm in a good spot, man. I
I
really
would
am.
say, a magical moment in sobriety is when you go to a show, you hear a song, or you're at the gym and you can feel the music and kind of jam to the music, but you get that same feeling you did as maybe when you were high or drunk, but you're not high or drunk, and you're like, oh, like that's the real connection to the music. That's what I
Yep.
loved about it. And that's kind of the whole thing. Like, I haven't played guitar in a long time. And part of it was because I used to always do it drinking. Um, I want to make sure that if I go back and want to play, I play because I want to play. And I enjoy it for the sake of enjoying it, not with any ulterior motive or purpose, you know, to make it about the music. And whether it's podcasting or anything, I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying, that being present and really enjoying what it is you're doing, whether it's, going to the gym, going to a job and actually, like you said, wanting to do a good job. I think if you, like you said, if you give a fuck just a little bit, you can almost do anything, but it makes a huge difference when you go out there and even to maybe how a customer is going to respond to you or a client. If they can tell that you actually give a shit, um, it just makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
But, I think for anybody out there um, who's struggling, I would agree with you 100%. If, just ask yourself what you're getting from it. And then, if it's not for you, stop it, pick up some good habits. Um, you know, the beginning sucks anyway. So if you're a little sore from working out, it's not going to matter. Might as well, put the habits in now.
Yep.
And eventually turn around, like in 2 days, I'll be a year off of Kratom, and, I'm down 40 pounds from last summer.
Hell yeah,
So,
man.
from 9 prescriptions to two, um, yeah. So, and got a podcast. But last question, what's future for you and Audic, and other than keep doing it, y'all got any new albums in the works, or what's coming
Yeah,
up?
so we've got two singles that I think one's done the music aspect of it. But we've got a music video for it that's being edited right now. And then we've got another one that's almost done. We've given the last notes, so it should be finished here soon. So, and then we've got some, we have a collaborative release with two different artists. I'm not going to say anything about it yet, but so we've got some cool stuff for everybody coming up soon. And then I would say I'm not sure how many singles we've released since our last album, but we're getting up to the point where I think we might have like one or two more releases, and then we'll probably get a few tracks together and drop an album and have it all stacked up. So we're getting close to that point. And then yeah, and then just staying busy, hitting the road, and we just did a bunch of festivals, and I think we're looking at maybe doing a Florida run with Sarah Nation and bringing them back to Austin,
Oh, cool.
or back to Texas, I should say, and doing some gigs. We're still working on that. Hitting the road with Swayze, doing a Texas run with him, and yeah, just seeing what comes, man. Just working on some stuff, and I'd like to at some point get us a vehicle that we can ride in. Right now, we're all having to take personal vehicles to shows and stuff, which kind of sucks. But I'd like to get us. I've just been saving the pennies. Everyone gives me shit, I think, about like James always trying to save the money, not pay out. But I'm trying to get us like an RV or something, so we can hit the road and sleep comfortable and be able to make our dollar stretch a little further. Because I would like to, within the next year, I'd really like to solidify some more cities around Texas, on the way to California, on the way up to Colorado, on the way to Florida. So I've got some more dates to hit, and do some legit more, get on the road, start touring again. Because right now we've been really kind of just sticking to this kind of the same spots, unfortunately. But it's hard when you got 6 people in the band. It's hard to get around.
It's a lot of management, a lot of schedules, a lot of everything, I think.
Yeah. So that's my goal, is just get us out more and be able to get on the road and start hitting some more markets. So yeah.
Last question. Favorite song to play?
Favorite song to play, like with the band, like full. So let me think. That's a good question. I'm almost always go with one of the newer tracks that we're working on, and usually we usually have like 4 songs in the set list that we've either just released or about to release.
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually 1 or 2 that really translates well to the full band, because we track, I'll track stuff here and then at the other studio, and then we kind of put it all together, and then we usually have to kind of like figure out how we're going to all play it together. We all know our parts, but it's how does it translate full band. And then sometimes certain songs are just really difficult to do that, and then other ones are just like bam, they just pop, and we've got one song right now that we're going to be putting out, and it's called Girl Like You. And I just really love playing it right now. It's nice and it's fresh enough that it's it's still like really fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's got that kind of spark to it, but it's we've got it solid enough that I'm not like nervous to play it. And so it's right now that's my favorite track, I think, to play. So yeah, I'm stoked on releasing this one too. Howie's producing it. We sent him the track, and he just got it back to us, and it sounds really, really dope. And yeah, it's gonna be fun, and the video for it's really fun.
Y'all gonna be playing it in Dallas? Is it gonna make the set?
Dallas. Wait, when are we playing?
The 10th.
What? Hold on.
May 10th.
May 10th. Oh, was that one of the Swayze dates?
Yep.
Yes. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll have to see. I don't know what's how long our set is, but I'm definitely going to vote that we do.
Well, I'm definitely gonna try to come and see you guys.
Cool, man.
I don't really even think try. I try it. I'm working on getting away from that word. Um, I have it on my calendar. I plan on coming to see y'all.
There you go. There you
It's been
go.
a while. I think the
I
last
do that same thing where I say try because it gives me an out if I decide I don't want to do it.
yeah.
And I try and it's better for me not to give myself an out because I usually the anxiety about something is always worse than actually the thing itself. So I try to just do
Yeah. Last
it.
time I saw y'all, I think it was when it was Gas Monkey with Cashed Out and maybe Drifting Roots. It was one of those typical like fucking Texas weather days where it's like 55, 60, and then that night by the time Cashed Out came on, it was fucking freezing. I ended up having to
Yeah,
buy uh I think it was like man, it was cold. I ended up buying a jacket, a beanie, just to stay warm, but like chicks were like in fishnets because they showed up like for the day like earlier shows when it was still daylight out. And then it was like freaking 42 degrees and windy outside, and it was one of those outdoor venues. Um, but I
those are
feel
good merch. Those are good hoodie merch days.
yes, yeah. But I was sitting there going like, I feel like I've seen y'all one other time, but I can't remember when or where. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to coming up there. I've never been to Ferris Wheelers, and so got a buddy who lives in Bedford. I'm trying to get him out. We've been friends since the first grade. So 41 years we've known each other. And
Nice.
yeah, so I'm trying to get him. It's been a while. He's, you know, he had a little rough go with a few things, and he's kind of back to where he's grooving and okay with, minus the social anxiety, maybe able to get out. And he's my friend that plays bass, so um
Oh, nice.
yeah, so
Well,
kind of get
he's
him
definitely got
out,
to come out.
want to play music and listen to music and stuff like that because I know it's been a while for him, and but I think he's finally back on track in the right headspace. And so and if not, then I'll come solo, as I always do.
There you
um
go, man.
but yeah,
Either way.
I appreciate you taking time out to talk to me, and thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate the openness, the vulnerability of talking about everything, especially sobriety, and hopefully it gives a word of encouragement to anyone out there who's struggling, but also people in that kind of creative space who are concerned that maybe their sobriety could impact their art form. And so I really
Yeah, man,
appreciate that.
that's what it's all about, man. That's why I'm so willing to talk about it because, other people talking about it is what helped me a lot. So
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're doing, man, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, I will see you on the 10th.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Guess I made a goddamn mess of things sitting at the jailhouse. I guess it got the best of me. It's a given, should've listened all the things you said to me. Don't be fucking around with the methamphetamines. Cold as hell up in the ceiling, coming down from everything. Haven't thought about you in a year and now you're on the sea. Guess that's how it goes. I'll see you once I fall asleep, and I'm feeling fine. But there's a heartbeat back down the highway, so I'll drive as fast as I can.
Well, you've made it this far, which means you're probably a super fan of the show. That's amazing, and I really appreciate your support. To keep up with all the latest updates, make sure you're following the show on social media. You can find all the links in the bio. And if you've been enjoying the content, I'd be so grateful if you could take a minute and leave a review. It really helps us reach more people who might love the show as much as you do. Also, don't forget to tell one friend about the show as well. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. And if you're feeling extra generous, check out the link tree in the bio where you can find a link to donate. Every little bit helps me keep creating the content you love. Thanks for being an awesome superfan. I couldn't do it without you.